is Tom Leahy. I'm the head of sales and business development with SureShield, and accompanying me on this presentation is Sanjay Kumar, our CEO. The two of us have been involved with compliance, risk management, and accreditation related software for actually combined close to more than 60 years, and really appreciate you all joining this session and talking about how you can leverage technology to help meet the new CMMC audit requirements. As focus of the agenda, obviously we just did the introduction. Dr. Kumar will start by talking just a little bit about things I'm sure you're all aware of, what the defense industrial base is and what are some of the new requirements and pressures that are coming upon those of you that are serving any type of government contractors, and specifically the Department of Defense. What was introduced through NIST 800-171 and what the new cybersecurity maturity model means and will mean to you. And then we'll talk a little bit about how leveraging technology to help make the process more effective, efficient, and reduce your risk profile, hopefully allowing you to assure, obviously to continue to do business as well as to gain new customers and assure that you'll be able to participate. And then lastly, we'll provide a little product demo just to give you a flavor of how different forms and pieces of technology provided by us can help in that process. At the end, we'll go, of course, open it up for questions. We intend to keep the presentation less than an hour to buy you back some time, as well as to have adequate time for questions. And then we'll go ahead and wrap up the session. So just as a note, if you scroll in usually it's in a lower toolbar, there's an area for Q&A. We'd please ask you to type your questions in there for us that we will get to. And then, there'll be follow-up information on, how you can contact us if you have need for additional information. You will also be receiving at the conclusion of the presentation, probably in the next day or so, a follow-up email that will include the presentation, and most likely will also include the recording of the presentation, which we're doing as well. So with that, Sanjay, I'm going to turn it over to you to get the session started.
Thank you, Tom. Good afternoon, and hopefully everybody's enjoying the bright sunny afternoon that we are having, at least on the East Coast. As Tom pointed out, in today's webinar, we will be highlighting the increasing need for businesses that are part of the defense industrial base to establish automated systems and data-driven solutions that can keep you on top of the changing compliance requirements that are now applicable for all DoD contractors. These changes were introduced rather recently, only in the past few months, and have actually gone into effect as of last year, October and November. More than ever, keeping confidential the government and military information secure from unwanted, nefarious people, prying eyes, has become critical to our country's sovereignty and economy. Even the recent SolarWinds hack basically highlighted the complexity and the nature to the extent that folks will go to basically acquire intellectual property. Theft of intellectual property and confidential unclassified information by foreign governments and agents remains a big concern for the DoD that has actually now recently led to this introduction or enhancement of the compliance program that they actually had. Today, the estimated number of contractors that are part of the defense industrial base stands at approximately 300,000. And this actually includes not just the DoD contractors, but also their subcontractors. So by default, as a contractor, if you're also doing business, or your business is also being done, and you're passing on some of that business to subcontractors, they automatically come under the preview of this particular new compliance requirements. All of the contractors are affected by the new DFARS regulation changes. Prior to the introduction of CMMC, all contractors were required to self-certify to the NIST 800-171 requirements. However, this self-certification process was found to be insufficient because it lacked proper oversight, checks, and balances. And in lieu of that, it was revised to basically, create a layer of certification on top of the self-certification process that was actually there before. So DFAR establishes the need for contractors now to basically demonstrate and indicate how well they are protecting controlled unclassified information and federal contract information by providing adequate protective measures that are commensurate with the consequences and probability of loss, misuse, or unauthorized access. So at present, the NIST 800-171 requirements applies to all covered contractor information systems. The NIST is to be replaced by the newly introduced CMMC practices. However, during this interim phase, contractors and subcontractors are required to demonstrate compliance with both of these frameworks. And as Tom will actually highlight to you as well as demonstrate to you during the demo, there is a established crosswalk, and as part of this particular tool set, you get access to both of those frameworks. But as you are assessing yourself on the NIST 800-171, you can automatically get scored on the CMMC practices. CMMC is a higher level of compliance and security attestation for the defense industrial base. The stakes for you all are getting higher, as CMMC certification by a third party will become an absolute requirement to bid on DoD RFPs and have contracts awarded. The new requirements mandates that you have a systems security plan in place and a documented plan of action and milestones for all identified compliance gaps. And again, Tom will highlight how easily the system actually literally will allow you to generate both of these at any given point in time. Through the DoD Supplier Performance Risk System, SPRS, the contractors are now required to submit an assessment score for the CMMC. So you literally have to go through your portal that is made available to you and indicate your score on the CMMC. And to support all of this, there are a number of people that are, the whole cycle is actually being reviewed in terms of even having people that might be able to work together with you and assist you during that particular process. So to reiterate, the CMMC is being introduced to allow for proper checks and balances to be there in the compliance certification process. Through a third party CMMC Accreditation Board that is now being established, a contractor's compliance on CMMC will be ratified. So you will be required to work with an accredited assessor that will overlook and oversee your compliance ratings that you have provided on your practices. There are a number of similarities between the two. NIST 800-171 had about 110 controls. The CMMC actually has about 20 additional controls on top of that literally apply to a majority of the contractors. And as you will see in the next slide, majority of the contractors we feel will fall into what we call the third level as compared to some of the other levels. The CMMC specifies a range of security maturity levels and practices that need to be met by any contractor, and compliance must be demonstrable as a qualification criterion in order for you to do business with the DoD. there are 5 levels that a contractor can fall into. I'm not going to go into details regarding each one of these 5 levels, but they are literally cumulative in nature, from the most basic practices that are required at level 1, increasing over to level 5, which requires advanced system security and progressive maintenance of cyber hygiene. We feel that a number of practices, number of vendors or contractors will literally fall into level 3. It is very, very wise and good for institutions, and even in level 1 and level 2, to check themselves to see whether they actually do have CUI data or not within their organization, or whether they are transacting that. And Tom will again demonstrate how that is very, very easy for one of our solutions to actually detect. Most of the clients that we have been speaking to, they might think that they're actually level 2, end up basically falling in level 3. Okay. So preparation. So in summary, what will you need to meet the requirements that are laid out? What you really need is, as I indicated, an audit against the 2 frameworks today, CMMC as well as 800 NIST 171. Ongoing vulnerability scans of your network to identify and remediate any potential cybersecurity gaps that you might have, and to remediate any of the identified issue with documentation of proof of how you're doing that through your plan of actions and milestones and your system security plan. You need to also have a defined set of policies and procedures. We do provide a template of policies and procedures that can actually aid you through the tool that's provided as part of the tool itself, for you to basically take and develop your own custom policies on top of, and basically adopt those policies for your organization in order to satisfy that particular requirement. You also are required now to basically demonstrate very, very clearly whether there is CUI data that you're transacting, how you're transacting that, as well as demonstrate how you're protecting that. So overall, literally the program has become a lot more stringent in terms of demonstration of compliance. Okay, now I will let Tom go ahead and highlight for you how you can best benefit from the solutions that we actually have.
Great, thanks, Sanjay. And again, thanks everyone who's here. I did just notice a question that came across about whether this presentation will be made available. And just to answer that question, the answer is yes. You'll be receiving a follow-up email after the presentation with access to this content, and intended as well access to the recording. Sometimes we have issues occasionally, so hopefully that will be made available to you as well. And as Sanjay pointed out, and as you all know, one of the complexities that you have here is you're really having to deal in kind of 2 different environments. While NIST is a subset of CMMC, and as Sanjay pointed out, at the level 3 level, that is about another 20 practices that are added on top to the NIST frameworks. But for conducting current business and then also being able to conduct future business, you're going to need to meet requirements of both. And it's pointed out that you should be actually preparing and starting to do that, the auditing against the CMMC as well. So what we've looked at and how we're trying to assist in this process with companies that are having to comply and service providers that are also servicing those companies is provide technology that can help ease that burden and make it a lot easier, a lot more efficient, and actually very quickly help you identify where gaps are that will need to be closed, particularly in the CMMC auditing process. So we do this through a variety of different tools that we have that are all actually integrated with each other. So firstly, what we have provided and provide to our clients is a crosswalk between the CMMC and NIST 800, 171 frameworks. So there's no need necessarily for you to do duplicate work. If you begin the CMMC process or you begin the NIST process, either way, the answers that you have in those will be automatically crosswalked to the different frameworks, which saves a lot of time and obviously also helps you kind of do both without having to do it twice. For those who don't have currently good scanning tools in place, we provide continuous vulnerability scanning solutions that will actually go into your networks, help identify where gaps may be, help point out to you how to fix those and get those in place. And obviously all of that leads to helping you with the submission of the POAM and the SSP. So we take relevant data and help populate into somewhere way automate that process. We also will help you with conducting, once those NIST assessments are done, is computing those scores that Sanjay pointed out earlier that need to be submitted. And then lastly, we also have modules that can actually help you identify the CUI data that you have in your environment. As you pointed out earlier in the presentation, there's a lot of providers that may think or have thought that they are in that either level 1 or level 2. And when they've run this utility themselves or through a provider that's helping them, they're quickly identifying that they have CUI data. And obviously that moves you up into the 3rd level automatically. So we, through this integrated platform, can also help organizations in using technology and tools that can help identify that CUI data, and not just identify it, but also put the proper controls and processes in place to protect that information. So not only encrypting it, but limiting the way in which that particular data can be moved, providing further protection in helping, assure you're not getting hacked. So I'm very quickly going to go into an overview of 3 of those solutions and some of the reporting that comes off of it, as we mentioned. I'm going to give you a quick view into what we call our ComplyShield solution, and that's the one that can be utilized to conduct the assessments that you need to do, allow you to actually distribute the work. It's not something that has to be done by any one individual, but to be able to push data out to others to help in that process. And to set up not just these frameworks, if any of you are dealing in healthcare or other types of environments, it will also do any kind of compliance framework that you may be working with. Within this demonstration, dummy demo that I'm going to show you, I will also have activated what we call our SecurityShield solution. And that's the tool that can be used for your continuous vulnerability scanning, remediation, and gap analysis. And then I'll give you a quick view into the Hackshield solution, which is the tool that helps identify the CUI data. And then I will also show you some of the outcomes and outputs that come out of utilizing those solutions that will help you meet those particular requirements. So with that, I'm going to just pause and exit out of here and move briefly over into our demo portal. And Sanjay, can you just confirm that you're seeing this? I know others are muted, but I was
yes, I am.
Okay,
yes, I am.
Great. So this is a example of the SureShield platform technology. And what you can see here is a dashboard that's helping point out a number of different components that you have in here. And actually, let me just lastly point out that, as Sanjay mentioned, we have also built into this solution policies that are compliant, that actually, that are compliant in line with those CMMC guidelines. So organizations can actually leverage the library of policies. We've mapped them to the controls. You can use that. You can use what we have. You can take those, you can modify and customize them for your particular organization. But we want to try to help get a leg up on making sure that you have those to meet those requirements. And also to point out, as part of this process, it's noted as a component of the ongoing CMMC accreditation and evaluation process, that this is not meant to be a static process. So they're expecting that this is going to be a continuous program that you are regularly and consistently evaluating. So one of the beauties of what we have is that it allows you to actually go make modifications at any time, and you will see the deltas of the changes that take place as your environment grows and changes. So let me just go into, I'm going to highlight a couple of things around. In this particular view, I have access to 3 different pieces. The policies, of course. The controls are related to the Hackshield controls and the frameworks that I might be dealing with. And then you'll also see in my site, I've been running what we would call regular vulnerability scans processes. So I'm going to click into my controls first, just to give you a sense of what you get when a framework is activated for you. So you'll notice when I've opened this up, it's showing me, for instance, the various types of regulations and standards that I am currently working with within my environment. It will show you what the controls are related to that, what the domains are, what that particular requirement might be, and where you're at in that process in terms of conducting and doing that particular type of audit. You'll also note that it's very easy for me to come over to something like this and filter on this data. So if I just wanted to look at my CMC standards in and of themselves, I could filter into those. If I just wanted to look at my NIST standards, I could do that, or my regulations. If I just wanted to look at a particular domain, for instance, and see how we're operating and performing in that domain, I could click into an area here and it would just give me things that are related to that particular domain. So as you're conducting these, like I mentioned, there's different ways that you can push this information out to others, for others to do that. And I'll just click into one of these briefly to give you an example of what it looks like when you're conducting or having people help you conduct that audit. So you'll notice it will take me into that control. It will ask me for answering where we're at in terms of how we're addressing this control. In some cases, you may be noting that it's already implemented. You may be noting that this is going to be addressed in your SSP and your POAM, and then obviously those reports would point to that, or it would be in a case where it's not implemented. And these are the types of things that then lead up to the scoring and the compliance reports that you'll get. You'll also see what the controls are, what the policies and procedures are related to those controls as well, and have access to those particular policies, as I mentioned again, to review or have part of your system. So I'm going to click out of here and briefly go back and just point out a couple of operational pieces, as we mentioned, that you have here. So there's actions, for instance, that you can take. If you were, let's say, picking 2 or 3 or 4 of these different types of audit questions, if you wanted to assign those to other people, you can, of course, go ahead and assign that to people, not only inside, but sometimes outside your organization, so that the work can be distributed, managed, and looked at appropriately. So I also want to point out that within these environments, when we talk about the assessment abilities, if I have, let's say, activated a CMMC or a NIST audit, rather than me having to go and answer questions, you'll see that there's this particular button that calls sync, and it allows me to sync those responses. I'm not going to do that right now, but you can see how we've mapped across to those different controls so that once you have answered one, you can automatically sync them up to the other. So you're not, redundantly answering the same type of information. So I'm going to back out of here right now. And again, just point out as well that you have a variety of list of policies, even those we map to the compliance requirements. So within the policies that we have here, we can also see that 10 of those, for instance, are not compliant. We're not necessarily following the requirements of that particular policy. But again, if I were to just click into these, this will open up that library or those libraries of policies that are available to me and allow you to go ahead and view those as well. And what the controls are that are related to those particular policies. So that in a high level view are the control frameworks for purposes, and specifically we're talking about NIST and CMMC, but I want to also emphasize that this is a robust compliance framework that can activate any type of audit framework or compliance framework you may want to use, from PCI to HIPAA to ISO and the likes. As I mentioned again, within this particular demo site, we've also activated what we would call our vulnerability scanning tool. So what basically happens is a small instance is out there that it allows the system to act like we call it a friendly hacker. They will basically go in and evaluate and scan all the data assets that you have within your environment and look for where there might be issues, vulnerabilities, problems with those. And, again, trying to help self-direct as to where the most important actions may need to be taken to reduce that risk profile. And that is all part of what we call the gap analysis requirements that you will need to do and actually show through those system security reports and the likes, the actions you're taking to improve your overall security posture. So you have a variety of ways in which you can look at that. Obviously, you have hosts in an environment. Those hosts may have software assets that are associated with them. And then so we're just helping you kind of determine the way you want to look at this particular process or these processes and how you want to work with them. So if I went into the host assets, it's going to tell me what that IP is, what the level of risk is with that particular issue, how many vulnerabilities are associated with that. And then if I were to go into that, it would also tell me how I can remediate that process. So as an example, when I say remediation, may just take a second for this to refresh itself. Yeah. I could look at the remediation processes, for instance, and it would be telling me that if I conduct these types of workarounds or a roll-up or a patch, what that patch will do and how it will fix that process within here. So, and this can be scheduled as often as you would like. We understand and folks understand you cannot always act on every single issue, but one of the benefits of this is that it will also help prioritize for you, both from a time perspective and from a cost perspective and from a security perspective, what actions and what remediations will have the biggest bang for the buck. And as I mentioned before, because it is continuous, it will also run what we would say a time series on it to see where you stand on any of those vulnerabilities over time, how they've improved, how they maybe have not improved. So that is the compliance and the security scanning solutions, and I'm going to go into showing you the outputs of those in reporting. But I'll also touch on briefly the other solution that we have that is will help identify your, what we would call CUI data. So again, this is a utility that will go out and sit on endpoints and identify a variety of different protected data that you determine and set up. So that could be PHI data, it could be credit card data, it could be things that are related to CUI identified information. And when you do that, it will actually go out and not only tell you where that is and what type of environments that data resides in, but then also gives you the opportunity to go and set rules as to how that data can move, what will happen to that data if it were to begin to go somewhere where it shouldn't be going. For instance, if someone tried to email something out, a rule could be on it that will say whether they've done that, it's automatically going to get encrypted so that nobody can open it up. And again, you can see if I were to filter in here, you'll see one of those data elements is the CMMC CUI data. And again, in here, if I were to pick these up, it's going to identify where that is, what it is. And we've even put some levels of, through our partners, some dollar risks of that data on it as well. So lastly, as we wrap up this brief overview, I'm going to go in and show you some of the reports and the different types of output that you can get, automated output you can get from this. So if I were to go into the ComplyShield solution, beyond running things like various types of compliance reports that you'll need to do, you'll also notice within here we have a number of the DFARS reporting documents. And so those include your security, system security plans that you can run and update and have available for submission, your plan of action and milestones. Again, that will take relevant data, allow you to update this particular plan and submit it to the required entities. And as an example, the report on NIST 800 assessment score. So we've taken that information and those algorithms that have been provided in terms of that scoring, and we've built that into the software so that when you run that, when you've done the proper assessments and you've run this will actually run the scores for you. And I believe those scores at the highest level are about either 110 or 120. You can see in this example, they're at an 82, and it will show you things related to why they're at that score and what they may need to be due to improve those overall results. And I will note in all of our reports, they can be saved. They can actually be scheduled to go out to other individuals. So if you wanted to make sure that different members of your team were getting this on a regular basis, you can identify who they are and they will go out to them. Of course, they would need to be registered users from a security protection standpoint, but allow them to actually get those reports pushed out to them on a regular basis. You also have the ability to download those into things like Word or Excel, should you want to use them for other presentations that you may have as well. I'm just going to cut out of here and go to other reports like I mentioned with the SureShield, that was the vulnerability analysis solution that will actually run vulnerability scans. You can see there's a ton of different types of reports that can be run on this. A lot of folks like, particularly for management, the top remediation reports, because these types of reports will help you, determine what are the ones that we should actually really focus our efforts on for maximum return. And they'll also run comparison, as we said, in benchmarking reports, because you can see how you've performed over time. But in this case, I'm going to go ahead and just give an example and run this report. And you'll see it outputs information to show within here, within this top remediations, we have 23 hosts that need 91, if we were to activate our remediation plans, we would end up mitigating 92% of our risk and 91% of our vulnerabilities. So it helps, in management and people that are responsible for doing this. And you can see in this case how it's changed over time. Help support why, for instance, if you're on the side of having to do these processes, why it makes sense to focus on these and what is going to be the ultimate outcome. Keep in mind, when you start getting into the actual CMMC auditing process, they're going to expect that you're not having issues to resolve, or they're going to be expecting that you have resolved these issues in your monitoring to make sure there's no new issues. So I'm going to pause there, and I'm going to turn it back over to Sanjay Kumar to finish up the presentation. And let me know, Sanjay, are you able to see my screen again?
Yes, I am, Tom. Thank you.
Okay, and let me just go to the next slide. But just to wrap up, as we know, this process is pretty cumbersome. The ROIs you can get by utilizing a solution like ours are certainly to help lower costs. In our frameworks, we are not charging for activating those two frameworks. So you can activate the CMMC and the NIST, and that's all for the same price. You'll get to faster identification of where gaps and the remediation processes are that will help you solve those gaps, and overall, improve your profile to, one, make sure you meet the requirements, to protect your current business, and to make sure that you're going to be in good shape to bid on any new business. So Sanjay, I'll let you from there go ahead and summarize, and then we can go ahead and take questions. I see we've got a few that are here already that I can provide to you after you wrap up.
Sure. So really, as Tom demonstrated, really the utility of the tool lends itself to keep you on top of the requirements that are currently there today, as well as those that are upcoming. As you all know, NIST 800-171 is a requirement for you today. CMMC is coming, and you need to be prepared. And we do have the different solutions that Tom went through to actually enable you to be armed and be prepared to succeed, not just for the current business that you would like to basically make sure that is protected, but for securing any additional business from the DoD. The most important thing that you do need to understand that aside from the use of a tool, third-party audit will be required through that accreditation board that is basically being formed. You will have third-party assessors that you will have to basically find in order to have the certification done for your CMMC compliance. The technology that we provide will help you simplify the overall compliance process, will allow you to cover all the aspects of compliance and security risk for your organization that are pertinent to CMMC success. And it will provide a state of continued readiness. Our tools are not created for you to use them as a one-off tool, but literally as a continuous monitoring and remediation program. Both the security scanning is literally can be done on a daily basis. There's no restriction to any of all of that. The compliance framework that we provide is literally a continuous remediation and monitoring program. So with that, Tom, why don't we go into some of the questions? I see that there are a number of questions that folks have asked.
Sure, and I know one of them we've already answered, which was, will you be getting the slide deck? One of the questions, Sanjay, is where is this product hosted? I mean, is it on-premise or in the cloud?
So the application that we provide and all of the solutions that we provide are hosted in the Amazon cloud. So it is cloud hosted. Now, is it FedRAMP accredited? Today, there is no requirement as such to have any one of these applications FedRAMP accredited. We ourselves are not basically as an application or a tool. It's an aid to basically aid you in complying. We do not transact any of the CUI, information or anything like that within the framework of our application. But Tom, you might want to expand upon that.
No, just that, obviously through our provider, they're meeting, which is Amazon, they meet a lot of those requirements, but we are also looking ourselves, and just for more, I would say, security requirements or peace of mind, going through some of the accreditation processes ourselves. And then we have another question around what is the vulnerability scanning engine you're using? And actually, it's a good question. I can answer that, Sanjay, that, you know, we look at best of breed as well, that not all of this is developed or created by SureShield. What we do is look at some of the best of breed and enhancing that. So we actually utilize the Rapid7 technology, which is one of the leading providers in the market. And what we've done is actually enhance that utility to, one, make it a cloud-enabled activation, as well as we've layered on a lot of other outputs, meaning the remediation processes, the reporting that goes on top of it to make it an even more useful and valuable scanning utility. Do you want to add anything to that, Sanjay?
No, that was actually good.
Okay. There's a few more questions I have here. How is, someone is asking about the Hackshield, the tool that identifies CUI data. How is that activated and what kind of is it doing again? Do you want to answer that?
Yeah, so literally, I mean, the way that Hackshield works is that there's a small agent, again, through a cloud deployment that is deployed within your network onto your endpoint. And as part of the configuration process of Hackshield, there are some pre-configured rules that are basically built in and algorithms that are built in to help identify CUI type information that might actually exist either file names or within the content of documents or within data. And if within those particular endpoints, CUI type data that has been configured to be looked for, and we continue to enhance those rule sets, but those rule sets are pretty robust. They will basically look on those particular endpoints whether CUI data exists or not, and whether it is protected or unprotected. If it is unprotected, it will immediately flag that particular endpoint with that particular data, including from which application it is coming from and how that particular data is being transacted or being worked upon. And based upon the rules that you have set, it will also automatically encrypt or protect that particular data. And in the future, also track any access to that data or movement of that data.
Great. And then I have a couple other questions that I can answer around how are these things priced. So generally we have the option of a monthly or yearly subscription for them for the compliance frameworks, as we mentioned, particularly as it relates to the ones we've talked about here, which is the NIST and the CMMC. We're providing that at a cost of about $1,500 a year. So you can do your math on the monthly charge relatively for that. And that includes both of those frameworks. And it also allows you to invite others in to participate with those. The scanning utilities and the Hackshield utilities are really based upon the number of what we would call assets and endpoints. And they have a a monthly cost for monthly or yearly subscription for using them. But the beauty of what we do as well is it's not per scan or per. That is you can do those as often as you would like to do. So the costs for that are actually quite low, and they run in the range of $4 to $7 per asset. And I'm going to go ahead and open this up. I'm not seeing any more questions, but we'll hold for just a minute if there are any more questions that you have. If not, just as a note, please, if you would like more information, you would like the opportunity to test drive or actually trial any one of our solutions, please visit us at info@sureshield.com or or email us at info@sureshield.com, sure-shield. You can visit our website. It will give you a lot of information on who we are and what we do. Of course, in the follow-ups that you will get that will include this presentation, just indicate that you would like a follow-up, and we would be more than happy to help, provide you with anything that you may need and help you in this process to protect and assure your ongoing business in this realm, in this particular important sector. So with that, unless you, Sanjay, have anything else to say, I'm going to go ahead and conclude the webinar and thank everybody for their time today. And again, please reach out if you would like anything or more information from us.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.